Hello, you lovely lot. I am Josh Carr, your host of Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm just dropping in very quickly to say apologies that this has taken so long to come out. It was due to come out about a month ago. And then my laptop broke, which if you follow me on Twitter at Josh Ryan Carr or at Who Knew Podcast, you'll have seen has been a bit of a disaster. My laptop completely died and I nearly lost this episode in its entirety thanks to the amazing people at Apple and a man called Mark. We managed to recover it, so thank the Lord, and also thank you to everybody who was supported. I know I had a few donations on my Ko-fi coffee thing, whatever that is, and I've had some new patrons over the past couple of days as well, which has really helped with the financial burden of having to buy this new laptop. But thank you to the bottom of my heart for donating. I'm just jumping on it basically to say this episode is a little bit jumpy because we also had a load of technical issues when recording this, so the audio might be a little bit patchy in places, things might be a little bit out of sync if you're watching on video, but it should sound relatively okay. And also, like I said, we mentioned in the episode that episode 5 of Redacted is now out. By the time this is out, every episode of Redacted is out. We'll have heard the finale. So please go and listen to it. And hopefully this will make a nice little addendum on the end to hear how it was made. Without further ado, here's the episode. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, as always, Josh Carr, and yet again, I have another wonderful guest. I know I don't know how I do it either, but it's something that's on everyone's lips at the moment. There is a little podcast called Doctor Who Redacted that you might have heard of that is taking the Doctor Who community by storm. And amazingly, I have Doctor Who Redacted's director and producer sat with me now. So, ladies and gentlemen, and variations thereupon, please welcome Ella Watts.
Hello! I love variations thereupon. That's so fun to me.
Is that a Doctor Who thing? I feel like that's in Doctor Who.
Oh,
I think I
accidentally.
So. It is. It's in the End of the World. Oh, I don't even know when I'm quoting Doctor Who anymore. This is the level. I've gone full meta. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I just got sent episode 5 of the podcast, so that is very much on my mind at the moment. Wow. I'm excited for people to hear it. Yeah, like it's kind of I'm mid-production, so my brain is very full at the moment of Redacted and everything to do with Redacted. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm very good, and I'm very, very excited for this. I like I said, everyone is talking about Doctor Who Redacted. There's another thing that everyone is talking about that I feel like we should very briefly mention. I don't want it to take up too much time, but
no,
obviously
we should talk about this.
We have a big new Doctor-shaped elephant in the room at the moment because as we're recording this, obviously I've done a video on it, but it was announced yesterday, and I feel like it hasn't really sunk in for anybody yet. Very quickly, what are your thoughts on Ncuti Gatwa as as the new Doctor.
Literally perfect casting. Literally perfect casting. So oh my gosh. So I was kind of, I really didn't have, like, I liked everyone's theory. Someone said to me, Adrian Lester, and I was like, yeah, Adrian Lester would be amazing. Obviously, I was a big fan of the idea of Lydia West. Like, clearly Lydia West would have been incredible. I generally had a thing, like, as a queer woman, that I was like, the one thing I would be really disappointed by is if they chose, like, a cis straight white man to kind of, like, to have Jodie go back into another cis straight white man actor would have just been, I would have been really disappointed by that, and I would have been disappointed in Russell. But I was like, you know what, like, if they either go with, like, a woman or a person of colour, I'll be happy. And, like, ideally, like, there are so many cool people to choose from in those two very, very broad categories. Yeah, and then, like, but I mean, like, a lot of people, like, Ncuti Gatwa just hadn't even occurred to me as a possible Doctor. And then, oh my god, when the announcement came, so actually, someone in our writers' room, Ken Cheng, DM'd me when Ncuti did the Instagram post and was like, do you know, like, is he the next Doctor? And I was like, I don't know. They don't tell me these things. But I was losing my mind. So I went to Instagram and I was like, oh my god, is Ncuti Gatwa the next Doctor? Is Ncuti going to be the companion? Like, I didn't know. And then, like, right after that, there was obviously the announcement. And I just, like, I actually nearly cried. Like, I just, like, it was, like, that level of, like, euphoria of, like, I was so anxious about who they were going to pick next. Because, like, I just, there were so many different ways that it could have gone wrong or been disappointing after Jodie, and then just, like, Ncuti is so perfect. And imagining Ncuti with, like, Russell's writing, like, oh my god, like, I just, like, I'm really so excited.
He's
like,
gonna be, it's gonna be so good.
Honestly, like, I feel like as a Doctor Who fan, this is such an exciting time. Like, I cannot wait. I was like, and after the BAFTAs, I was really hoping that they were going to give us, like, a crumb of, like, a preview or something. I know that they've, like, barely started filming, but, like, I was like, oh, just, like, even just, like, a little, like, it just something little. And I was, like, Googling, and I could only find people's YouTube videos about it, and they were really cool. But I'm like, I'm literally just, like, I want all of, like, the Ncuti Gatwa 14th Doctor, like, content just in my veins, just immediately.
Yes.
I want all of it. Like, I can't wait to see what he wears.
The costume. This is the thing. Like, there's the Review of Death podcast, great podcast with Billy and Matt. I was listening to them, and it was like that they were going over, like, the things that go through a Doctor Who fan's mind, and it's not, what's the characterization going to be like, or I wonder how he's going to play it, or it's what's the costume? Is he going to do conventions? It's just all the nerdy things, basically, and it's all very exciting. I love it when a new Doctor gets announced, because it's mad, and
it's just so exciting.
And I'm so excited,
and I really want.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm sorry. I think there's a lag, so I keep interrupting you. I don't mean to. You go.
It's fine. It's fine. We are having some slight technical issues with a bit of lag, so forgive us if we chat over each other a little bit. We're also very excited. So, but yeah, I think it, like, going in, as I said in my video, please go and watch it if you haven't. It's a new series called The Speakeasy, where I just chat random Doctor Who topics. If you want me to chat about things like that, just tweet me a topic. Sorry, little plug there. But anyway, I said I don't really know anything about Ncuti Gatwa. I'm an uncultured swine who hasn't seen Sex Education. I'm part of the 2% of the population who hasn't seen Sex Education. And I'm now obviously going to watch Sex Education, but I'm really, really excited. It's just going to be so fun.
And I think, so I was one of the people who got on board with Sex Education quite early because I'm queer and I care a lot about intersectional sex education and how incredibly bad it is in British schools. And I was kind of, like, interested in just the premise, and then obviously it came out and it was incredible, and, like, the cast were incredible, but, like, oh my god, like, I have been in love with Ncuti Gatwa for such a long time because, like, his portrayal of Eric, like the level of charisma and vulnerability he brought to that character, like he is magnetic, like as a performer, just completely, like as soon as he's on screen, just like you can't tear your eyes away, and he's so like full of like just like so vivacious and just like bright. And like this is the thing with like the costume and stuff, is like I'm so excited, like I really hope that they give him just like a really bright, like colorful something, like gorgeous and like jewel colors kind of thing, like is what I want, like, you know, something like royal blue or like a deep red kind of thing. And then just like I just like I can't wait for him to be the Doctor, because I've seen like the way that he can do that, like range from being like really vulnerable and almost like haunted and like can portray like really deep feeling, but also be so confident and so charismatic and so fun and full of life. And it's like that is just like I have seen him do every emotion that I want to see the Doctor do, and I cannot wait to see him do the Doctor, like, and be the Doctor, because it's just it's gonna be amazing. I'm getting emotional just thinking
very
about
excited.
it.
we are all emotional. And I think, no, we don't need to calm down. We need to just carry on being emotional and excited, because it's just, what a time to be a Who fan. It's so great. And one of the reasons why it's a great time to be a Who fan is, again, sat right in front of me, because of Doctor Who Redacted. Before we get into Doctor Who Redacted and all of that good stuff, let's rewind a little bit and start where I always start, at the very beginning. I haven't started at the beginning, we've started at Ncuti Gatwa, but we're going to go to the beginning second, and I want to know where you became a Doctor Who fan. How did you become a Doctor Who fan?
So I'm a New Who girl. So I have like, put it simply, like I had kind of a difficult time growing up. And so I wasn't super close to a lot of people. But I lived in Australia for a bit as a kid, because my dad was in the military, and he was flying for the Air Force over there. And, you know, Australia is a really long way from England and flights are expensive. So for 3 years, I wasn't able to come back to England at all. And I turned 8 on the plane over to Australia. And then I was 11 years old when I came back to the UK. And that, like, the year that I came back to the UK was the year that Russell T Davies, like, revived Doctor Who. And so for me, in, like, my head and in my life, like, Doctor Who was, like, absolutely, like, I'd come home and this huge, amazing thing happened. And I used to watch it with my brother, you know, like, every week, and it was just incredible, you know, like, we were there for Christopher Eccleston. I didn't know anything about Doctor Who. My parents weren't really, like, sci-fi fans or anything, so I didn't really have access to any of that culture until I started getting it on TV, like, myself. And so I didn't know anything about Doctor Who. I didn't know about regenerations. I didn't know about the TARDIS. I didn't know about the history of the TV show. And I remember when Christopher Eccleston regenerated and my tiny baby brain just, like, exploded. And I was so cross. I was like, David Tennant, like, who is this man? I don't like him. He's terrible. Give me the other one back. I liked him, kind of thing. And it really took, like, the entire of that first Tennant episode for him to win me over. Because, like, 11 going on 12-year-old me was just like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is nonsense. I disagree. And then, like, and then by the time that, you know, Tennant regenerated, like, I mean, I started writing, like, Doctor Who fan fiction when I was a teenager. I wrote over 200,000 words of fan fiction. The first fan art that I ever got for my writing was for a Doctor Who fan fiction, where someone, like, illustrated bits of my fic. Yeah. I used to, like, rewatch the episodes and make notes so that my fanfic would be, like, consistent. And yeah, like, it got me through growing up, pretty much. Like, it was with me from when I was 11 to, like, all the way through, like, my undergraduate degree, and, you know, until the present day. And for me, kind of, like, the big moments, I mean, apart from, like, those first series was, when Jodie got announced as the Doctor, and I remember seeing the first trailer for Jodie as the Doctor and just like bursting into tears because they chose very good music. Like obviously Sega Nakanola's music is just incredible, and they had this like moment when she leapt, and it was the same in that first episode with the crane, where like I was just like I'm feeling all of the things, like girls can be the Doctor now too. And as much of a cliche as that sounds, like it was kind of, I mean, I have deeply mixed feelings about the most recent Star Wars trilogy. Most of them are bad, but the first film, when the first time that like Rey picked up a lightsaber, like I remember I was 6 years old again, you know, like it was like there was a girl and she was picking up a lightsaber and she was using it, and that was cool. And I remember like that moment, and that it was kind of like that for me with seeing Jodie as the Doctor and seeing her like embody the Doctor and be the Doctor. Like she has 2 speeches in her first episode where she talks about the grief that you carry with you and about how like her loved ones are never gone because she always has them with her. That like I remember seeing her perform that and being like, oh, right, no, that's the Doctor. Like, that's the Doctor. And actually, I think the other moment was when she jumps off the crane. Like, I love that moment. What a Doctor thing to do. What a stupid thing to do. Doctor, what are you doing? You don't have any abilities that make you better at jumping. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely story. And like, I love the fact that, like you said, you came back from Australia and this phenomenon just blew up and went insane. Because, I think, like, it sort of just crept up out of nowhere. And I love that. Like, for me anyway, because I knew nothing about Doctor Who as a kid. I assumed that you were the same. Like, classic Doctor Who was just I thought it was just a new show. I didn't know that it had been on before. So obviously you said that you were a New Who kid. Have you explored the classic era at all? It's a scary one, and it's one that I only recently delved into. But like, have you explored it at all, or?
No, so, I mean, at this point, every Doctor Who fan in the world will decide that they hate me and I'm not allowed to be a Doctor Who fan anymore. But no, I still haven't really engaged with classic Who. I've seen a couple of episodes and I know a bit about it from kind of researching, reading, and also Big Finish. But I haven't yet like gone through and just like watched classic Who. I have a very dear friend called David K. Barnes who writes a lot of Big Finish audio adventures. And he especially, I need to apologise to David specifically for the fact that I still haven't watched classic Who. But yeah, like, I think it's just one of those things where I know it's amazing. I know it's an incredible cultural artifact. I really like seeing the clips that I see, and I've seen, like, the episodes that I've seen have been, like, these wonderful operatic, like, adventures that I really, really want to know more about. I just also have so much media to consume and ADHD.
Thing. Yeah, it's so much. It's like when I was the same as you. I'd barely seen any, and I'd only seen like 1 or 2 episodes here and there, and I just went in from the beginning. I mean, I had lockdown, so you know I was stuck at home 24/7, so I had an excuse. But it's intense, and no one should think ill of anybody for not seeing classic Who. That's silly and daft and gatekeepery, and grow up, basically, if you think that. Because, like I said, all Who is Who, and one of my things was I didn't want to watch it for a while because I was saving it, and I was like, I'm just saving it back so that I've always got new Doctor Who, because I'm worried that one day we're going to run out of Doctor Who. I hope not, because I hope that there's enough people in the world who love Doctor Who that will keep it alive in some way. But yeah, I just, is that a weird thing? That's weird, isn't it? Just saving media.
No, I don't something
fear
so
that it's
small,
going to die.
No. I do that as well. And I also have that with Star Trek, where I love Star Trek, but I can't bring myself to finish like classic Star Trek or like old Star Trek, because when I do, there won't be any more of the like, older Star Trek series left, and I love them so very much. And yeah, like I think that like, yeah, I absolutely get that. It's like, as long as I haven't watched classic Who, I know I have all of these amazing science fiction adventures where, like, if I have a really bad breakup or a bereavement, or if I'm sick, or if I'm just like having a bad time, I always know that I've got this like thing in my back pocket that I know will be marvelous. And it feels like, I don't know, it feels like having magic beans in my pocket, and I don't want to plant them yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. Exactly the same. So now, obviously, we have to come on to Doctor Who Redacted, which is, again, something that came a little bit out of the blue for a lot of people, and it's very, very fast cemented itself into people's lives as their weekly slice of Doctor Who, which is really, really lovely. And I don't even know where to start. I'm very intrigued as to how Doctor Who Redacted came about and how you got involved, basically.
Gosh, okay, so basically I am Redacted. I made this podcast, I came up with the idea, I brought everyone else on board. So kind of,
Wow.
before Redacted, there was Ella, and then there was Redacted. It's a long story. This has been on the cards for nearly 3 years.
Wow.
And I am 28 years old. That is not an insignificant percentage of my life that I have spent trying to make this podcast exist. So basically what happened was, a couple of years ago, the Doctor Who brand said that they were interested in an official Doctor Who podcast. But there were a couple of limitations on it. Partly because the Doctor Who brand is very aware of all of the Doctor Who fan podcasts out there, like this one. And, Radio Free Skaro and Verity and, like all of these amazing shows. And so they were kind of like, well, we don't want to try and do what people are already doing.
Yeah.
And obviously I say that, and then like Big Finish is like behind me in the corner being like, hello. But the idea with Redacted was they specifically wanted a podcast that would appeal to people who weren't already massive Doctor Who fans, so people who might not know classic Who, and also specifically to appeal to young women, like women under 35 and working class communities, because they felt that whilst a lot of the extended materials of Doctor Who served like fans really, really well, like obviously if you are a Doctor Who fan, Big Finish is amazing, but if you don't already know a lot about Doctor Who, then the Big Finish catalogue can be a little bit intimidating. And so, I mean, I've said quite a lot on Twitter that like my evil plan is that Redacted is like the pipeline that you use to get into Big Finish.
Yeah.
Because you listen to Redacted and then you're like, okay, this was like a free sample, and now I can go check out like Doctor Who audio dramas that I buy. So I like, what I want is for us to be working together. But that's kind of the backstory of that. And so basically what happened was, I was brought into a meeting, which I'm just going to tell you, I was not given any notice for at all. And in the meeting, they said, oh, this is the pitch for the Doctor Who podcast meeting. And I was like, it's the what now? And I have a notebook that I think I actually might have somewhere here on my bookshelf, where as they were doing the introductions and explaining what the podcast needed to be, who it needed to appeal to and stuff, I was making up ideas. And I was like, okay. And like, then we did our introductions, then it was like, okay, has anyone got any ideas? And I pitched like a couple of different things. And one of the things I pitched was what would become Redacted, which was basically BuzzFeed Unsolved, but Doctor Who. Nice. And my idea and my premise was two things. First of all, there are lots of normal people in the Doctor Who universe who are affected by the Doctor's actions and, monsters and companions who we never see or talk about. And that was something that I really enjoyed about Love and Monsters. the other thing was that I think that specifically when you're making drama for marginalized communities and working class communities, I think that science fiction and fantasy, as much as I really, really love it, it sometimes falls into kind of the pit hole of creating fantastical metaphors for privilege. So this character is secretly a genius, or secretly a prince, or secretly has access to like incredibly expensive, sophisticated equipment and technology. And it's like, if you're a person who doesn't feel like your life is just magically open up for you, and people don't just give you jobs, and things aren't just easy, and you actually like have to work really hard, and you mess up a lot, and you get stressed, then sometimes those metaphors can be quite alienating. And I think like something that was really important to me, and something that I pitched in that first meeting, was the idea that these characters are just normal people. They don't have superpowers. They're not secretly aliens. They don't have access to amazing technology. They don't know the Doctor or the Doctor's companions. They're just normal people. Because I think that if you want to kind of bring new people into Doctor Who, and specifically if you're trying to like have like a respectful and enjoyable conversation with like working class listeners and like people from marginalized backgrounds, then one of the things you have to do is like look people in the eye, make people feel like alienated or condescended to. So yeah, like just regular people who are trying to live their lives and pay their rent and have a job. And yeah, and then based on that kind of pitch, I then like worked that up. People liked it in the meeting room, so I wrote it up. And for about 6 months, it was just me and a Word document going everywhere with a picture of Buzzfeed Unsolved being like, what if we did this? And I didn't know what the story would be, didn't know who the characters would be. I was just like, in theory, this audio drama would be cool. And then finally I was given kind of some money by Sounds to approach some writers and to start like actually developing it. And so I was trying to figure out who to bring on board, and I'd read Juno Dawson's novel for the 13th Doctor, The Good Doctor. And I'd also listened to her Big Finish Torchwood audio dramas. And I was like, if you want to make a drama appealing to women under 25 and working class communities, then Juno Dawson is a very good person to write that story, because she knows what that experience is. Like, she grew up in Bradford, she grew up like working class, she has a really, really, really good understanding of like femininity and like young girls and like the experience of young girls. And you can see that in all of her other writing as well, like obviously not just Doctor Who. And so I kind of like emailed her. I'd never met her before, and I was like, hi Juno, I have a podcast that may or may not exist one day. Would you like to help me convince people to let it exist, and also maybe give it characters in a storyline, because at the moment I just have Buzzfeed Unsolved but Doctor Who. And she and I had a coffee. And as we're having this coffee, she's coming up with these ideas for like characters and being like, oh, well, we could have a character who's kind of like this, or we could have a character who's kind of like this. And it was like, there was just this like little spark there, like already. And then like, and it was just like, oh, both of us were quite invested in these characters now. So then we had a little writer's room with Sasha Sienna and Catherine Brinkworth, who are two of our writers. And actually Catherine's episode just came out, which was episode 4, Angels. And with Sasha, Catherine, Juno and I, we had like a whiteboard, and I reserved a room at the BBC for like, I think either 2 or 4 hours. And we just came up with a plot for Redacted, and spent like 4 hours just coming up with it, being like, okay, this is broadly going to be the plot, these are broadly going to be the characters. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. Like, we brought on our writer's room, we developed it further. Whilst I was working at the BBC, James Robinson, our exec producer, came on board, and he had this massive like legacy of working at BBC Radio Drama Wales as head of drama there, so he knows a lot about audio drama and audio drama production. We obviously had to work quite closely with Doctor Who to make sure that all of that worked out. We didn't even know which characters we were going to have. But then there were like lots of like stumbling blocks and hurdles. So the original people who commissioned the podcast at BBC Sounds, they all left BBC Sounds. And so then it was like, oh no, the people who wanted our podcast are gone. And so then we had to like kind of pass it on to someone else. And all the way up until like last Christmas, I was like, you know, re-editing the scripts, and my friend Gwyn, who works at BBC Studios, like was making us like graphics for the front pages of the scripts to make them look nicer, to try and convince Louise to let us have like this show. We'd written all of the scripts for the series and we'd been commissioned for them, but we still didn't know that we were going to make the podcast. Like it still hadn't been confirmed. So I had like 10 scripts and I was like, I don't know if these will ever be made. And then in the second week of January, we found out from BBC Sounds, okay, no, we do want you to make the podcast. We want it to release on Easter Sunday immediately after the Easter special, which means you are recording in 2 weeks.
Oh,
good luck.
Wow.
Which was a hell of a turnaround. So I have had a year so far. And after 3 years, we ended up having like 3 months to like do the thing, which was wild. But yeah, and then, you know, we made a show. I will answer more questions about that if you're interested. But yeah, there we go.
This is absolutely fascinating. I must say, because it's just like, I mean, first of all, the idea of, because I feel like it is something that people have been crying out for a while, and obviously Big Finish is there and they do their thing, but like you said, it can be intimidating. And I think there, as long as I've been involved in like Doctor Who Twitter, people have always been saying they should do like some kind of Doctor Who podcast. But I don't think anyone imagined it like this. I think people sort of imagined, like, they do those like obsessed with like Killing Eve podcasts and stuff like that, and it's like talking about the show. I think people expected that kind of thing. And as soon as I saw the press release that was Doctor Who Redacted podcast, I was like, oh, they're doing like a chat thing. Like, that's going to be really cool. And then I read the press release. I was like, oh, this is even cooler. This is the coolest idea that you could have about a podcast. I mean, as a podcaster myself, I mean, I use that in the loosest sense because there are professional podcasters out there who do an amazing job. But as someone who makes a podcast in a very similar vein to the Blue Box Files, like in terms of the way that it's produced on Zoom calls and just scrambling for notes and stuff like that, I've never felt more seen in media than listening to Doctor Who Redacted, and it has nailed. First of all, it has nailed the experience of creating a podcast. It's just it's perfect. Also, this has just sort of turned into me reviewing Doctor Who Redacted to you now, so apologies, but I love it. Everything that you said, like in terms of making obviously like diverse characters that appeal to a younger audience, obviously a female audience, that all of those things, it all lands. All of the characters are so amazing, and like Cleo, Abby, and Shauna are just I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but I just love them as a trio. I love them individually. They're all great. And I think as well, I think one of the biggest compliments that I can pay it is that you do not have to be a Doctor Who fan to listen to it, which is so cool as well, because it's like you listen to it, and as a Doctor Who fan, you get so much out of it because there's so many tiny little references to some of the strangest parts of and the strangest little nuggets of information from across Doctor Who, and you can pluck out just amazing little nuggets of information. But if you don't have that information in your brain, it still works as a cohesive, really fun and really exciting plot. And I just, if there's people out there who haven't listened to Redacted, please go and listen to Redacted. Obviously, we're as we're recording this, we're on episode 4. by the time this comes out, episode 5 will be out, so we're hitting about the halfway point. Like I said, it's gone down really, really well. I hope you see that. I know that you're very, very active on Twitter, and I know that you've thankfully gotten loads of lovely messages, and I hope it has been mostly lovely, because Doctor Who Twitter could be a hellscape at times. But yeah, how have you felt now that it's out? I know it's not all out, but how have you felt now that it is slowly releasing weekly and people are listening and giving you feedback?
Yeah, oh my gosh, so many things. Massive combinations of like relief, joy, excitement, and also anxiety of like, you know, I kind of, I feel very protective of the show, the writers, and the actors and the characters. I say a lot that Cleo, Abby, and Shauna are my daughters. At this point, it feels like they are. Like, I just will fight for them. And I think it's a great show. And like I said, I mean, I've been fighting for this podcast to exist for 3 years. I have had so many meetings where people have said to me, okay, but should the podcast exist? And I have made the case and the argument for it so many times. I nearly didn't say, but just before Christmas, I made a 40-page deck, like being like, this is why the podcast should exist.
Wow.
This is who we should talk to. This is why it works. Because I was doing that like on my Christmas holiday, because I was like, I want this podcast to exist. And I think that it's important that it exists. So before release, I kind of had this thing where I was like, you know what, like, maybe lots of people are gonna hate it. There was a British MP who said that the Doctor being a woman made crime happen. So I was like, we've got, like, I'm a queer woman who's made a podcast about Doctor Who, and it stars queer women, and it stars a trans woman. And I was like, I am sure that there are going to be people who are going to be nasty about this. And I kind of made a decision in myself before we even released the first episode that I was like, I believe in my heart, because of Juno's work and because of Charlie's work, especially like as Cleo, that there will be at least one person out there in the world for whom this podcast would be everything. And I was like, I don't care how many millions of people hate it, send me hate mail, like talk about it online. I'm going to hold on to the idea that I truly and sincerely believe that at least for one person, this will be as important to them as like that first series of Doctor Who was to me. And so it will have been worth doing. And like, I kind of came in with this like almost quite defensive, quite combative kind of like, no matter what, I'm going to believe it was the right thing to do. And then to see people like responding the way that they did, it was like, first of all, just this overwhelming like resonance of feeling seen, like as a Doctor Who fan, as a queer Doctor Who fan, as a woman who's a Doctor Who fan, and being like, yes, like you see me, you get me, and people being like, oh, they talk like me and my friends, and I'm like, yeah, they talk like me and my friends, and like and like Doctor Who fan podcast being like, hey, they made a joke about Doctor Who fan podcast, I do that, and me being like, yeah, I'm a podcaster who likes Doctor Who, like. And so it was like a lot of like kind of emotional resonance and solidarity for me personally, being like, yes, I see you and you see me, and this is good. This is what I think art should be. I think all art is fundamentally communication. But also just like, yeah, this enormous joy and pride. Like, I like honestly pride. Like, this is my first ever series that has been commissioned for me professionally. Most producers start out with like a standalone 15-minute drama, and I started out with a 10-part series for Doctor Who. So I was like terrified, but also incredibly proud of how well it's gone down, and like incredibly proud of like my like colleagues and co-workers. Like, this was very much a team effort, and just everyone poured their hearts and souls into this show, but especially Juno, and especially Charlie Loyce and Holly, our leads. And yeah, like, it was great. But I also do have this, like, low-level anxiety, which is, like, now that people have liked it, I feel I don't want to let people down. And so now I'm terrified that like people won't be happy with the ending, or like the rest of the episodes they won't feel are as good. And so I do have this kind of low level anxiety of like this pressure is now on, that like because we had a good start, now we have to like keep it good. And I think it's good, but I don't know what other people will think. So we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. But at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't think you have anything to worry about, because, like I said, from what I've listened to so far, and again, like, it's not just I'm in like a couple of group chats with Doctor Who people, and it's like there'd be one person who's like, oh, I've not listened to Doctor Who Redacted yet, should I listen? And then it's just a flood of yes, all in caps, like yes, listen now, please. Like, people love it, and I personally, again, this is me gushing a little bit, because I just think it is genuinely some of the best Doctor Who media that I've ever seen, or not seen, listened to. And it's just, and like I said as well, I'm obviously, as you said, not in terms of age I am, but in terms of, and in terms of background, but in terms of gender, and I'm a straight white male. It's not really aimed at my demographic, but it's so fun to also just sort of immerse myself, because I know people like that. I think everyone knows people like Cleo and Abby and Shauna, and if you don't, go out and try and meet people like Cleo, Abby and Shauna, because they're the kind of people that you want to hang around with. And yeah, just getting also a bit more of an insight in terms of, representation is very important in media, not just for people to feel represented, but for stuffy old white blokes like me to understand how other people experience life, and how many different types of people there are who experience life in very different ways. And I think it's very important for that as well. And yeah, I just love it. I feel like 90% of my questions have gone out the window, because this is, I just, I mean, you answered a lot, because I was so intrigued as to how this came about. And it's so interesting hearing like that it's also really nice to hear that they were conscious about, the fan creations and things like that. Because I think that fan created media, and in a way this is fan created media, it's created by you, just in a more official capacity. But it's really nice to hear that they sort of considered that.
We did originally have this idea, and like we couldn't do it because of, I don't know, I think it was to do with like legal stuff, but we originally really wanted Shauna, Cleo and Abby to reference real world Doctor Who fan podcasts as like sources for information. So like Abby is a fan of like Radio Free Skaro, and would be like, oh yeah, like there's this show, or like there's this show called Who Knew, and like they've got these amazing theories kind of thing. And like our idea was to kind of like try and bring in like Doctor Who like fan bloggers and stuff, and have the, and like blur that a little bit. And like we couldn't in the end, which was really sad, but like yeah, we really had that. And also, like, I just want to say, to go back to your point on listening to stories that are about people that aren't you, like, I'm cisgender, right? Like, and I really agree. Like, I think that there's, like, like what I said before about art being communication. Like, I think art is this incredible way that we can build bridges and find connections between people and learn more about each other. Like, we were talking about Ncuti Gatwa earlier, like, him as Eric in Sex Education gave me an insight into like being Black, British and gay in a way that I had like just no access to. Yeah. And it's this beautiful portrayal and like celebration of that specific identity that I found incredibly compelling as a white woman, because it's just good to learn about other people and to care about other people and to learn about the ways in which other people experience and express joy and affection. Like, I think that fundamentally human beings are kind, and we want to be kind, and we want to learn how to be kind in as many ways as possible. I think that probably that's a big theme of Doctor Who. And yeah, so I think that that's important. And also that there's the side which is Doctor Who, I think, has always been very queer, even when it wasn't explicitly queer. And, like, for me, as a kid growing up, I didn't, like, hear the word bisexual until I was 18 years old, but I was bisexual. And my first encounter with, like, the concept of bisexuality was on Doctor Who. And it would have taken me a lot longer to figure out who I was if it wasn't for the fact that Russell T Davies was writing Doctor Who. So, yeah, I think that there's also an element of, like, maybe you think this isn't you. Maybe listening to the show will help you realize that it might be you, or it's allowed to be you if it resonates with you.
Yeah. And like I said, it's resonating with so many people. I'm just really excited about it. I'm excited to hear the rest of it. I'm excited for you and everyone involved that it's finally out there after, like you said, such a long production process, because I feel like that's something that is going to interest people, because it sort of just came out of nowhere for us. Like, it feels like, not that it was like cobbled together, but the fact that it seems like something that might have been like quite a fast turnaround. And yeah, I think as well it just opens so many doors for this platform of podcasting to be used in the realm of Doctor Who, because I think it's a great way to tell stories and have fun with it. And I think they're just nailing Doctor Who on other platforms that aren't telly at the minute. I think audio dramas and podcasts and books and comics, they're nailing it. What I did want to ask as well is like, it wasn't really a question. It's more just a statement, because I think you should be really proud as well of the pod, because I think it's gonna, and I think the stuff that you were saying before about how it was created as well is going to inspire a lot of people, because I'm one of many who are creating or trying to create their own audio series or trying to create a podcast like this, and just hearing those experiences and getting this kind of media in an official capacity from someone who's so passionate about it and is obviously a fan of the show is very, very lovely, and it's very, very inspiring as well. Good. I mean, we've got more questions to come from a certain hellscape that was previously mentioned, but
David Tennant clip time.
David Tennant clip time, yes. But before we get there, we're going to have a very, very short break, very short, and then when we come back, we are going to see what Ella would like to submit to the DVD collection. Hello, and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, as I said, Josh Carr, and I'm still here with Ella Watts. And it's very, very exciting. Is it weird for you? Sorry, this is just a side question. Is it weird for you, having produced and directed a fictional Doctor Who podcast, to now be on an actual Doctor Who podcast? I feel like that would be weird.
I think for me, the bigger emotional experience is having listened to Doctor Who fan podcasts for quite a long time and to now be on one. Like, for me, that's the bigger transition. Like, it's like, oh, this is cool. Like, now Doctor Who fan podcasts want to talk to me because of a Doctor Who thing I made. That for me is kind of like overriding the, like, Blue Box Files thing. Especially because also, like, the Blue Box Files is a Doctor Who podcast, but from Shauna, Abby, and Cleo's perspective, it's a podcast about aliens. And they don't know it's a Doctor Who podcast. They're just like, this is a conspiracy theory podcast. And so I think I would feel it more if I was like, if I did something like Last Podcast on the Left, then I would be like, I have made a fake podcast like this, and now I am on a real one. But yeah, with this, it's more of the Doctor Who fan in me.
I mean, there's also just this overwhelming urge that I now just want full episodes of the Blue Box Files as well. Just that would be a dream. Imagine that.
I have blooper recordings of Lois, Holly, and Charlie just like making up episodes of the Blue Box Files, and like the first time we did it, I needed some audio for like a random clip in the background for reasons, and so I said, me and Juno, we summarized a Doctor Who episode to them, and we said, like, this is what you would know about it. This is what Abby would have figured out from research. Go. We just need 2 minutes of audio. And they started going. And they got to 2 minutes in. And they were all just, like, going off so much. And me and Juno just, like, exchanged a look. And we were like, we've got time. And we just let them go. And they fully just went for, like, 20 minutes to the point that Lois, as Abby, like, made up and don't forget to email us on this email address if you've got any questions about the show. And they did like a full-on sign-off and actually did a full podcast episode, just like they just made it up, like, and it was amazing. Incredible. And it was so much fun. There's also a bit, the opening of an episode, I won't tell you which one, opens with like Blue Box Files stuff, and specifically with Shauna doing a big speech about what she thinks the blue box is. And with that, we didn't give Holly a script. We just said to her, can you just make up what you think Shauna would think the blue box is? And she did 3 different takes, and all of them were so good and so funny that like Charlie and Lois were like actually cracking up. We were all cracking up, and like they were wild. It was amazing. And so when we get to that bit, you can all know Holly just made that up. She was just in Shauna, and she was like, yeah, okay, this is what I think Shauna would think. And it's great.
I hope that somehow they eventually see the light of day, because that would be lovely, and I think everyone would love to hear that. We've got a little feature to attend to. We have a certain collection of DVDs to go and have a look at. Of course, it is the DVD collection.
Power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp, or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I'll prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
So, the DVD collection, for anybody who doesn't know, is a collection of episodes or stories of televised Doctor Who submitted by my wonderful guests. And today's no different. We've got another episode going in. I don't know what it is. The only person who does is Ella. So, Ella, please enlighten us. It would be great if you picked Enlightenment now, but obviously I know you haven't seen classic Doctor Who, but you know that would have been a perfect lead-in to enlighten us with Enlightenment. But please let us know what you would like to submit to the DVD collection.
I'm actually nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. It's fine.
I don't want Dr. Who fans to say.
There's no wrong answer.
Say, Gridlock.
Yes.
Is what I want to submit.
There definitely isn't a wrong answer there, because Gridlock is a banger.
Gridlock is amazing, and I want to submit it for a couple of reasons. One of them is just that 10th Doctor Gallifrey speech, which is just one of my favourite kind of reflections by the Doctor on the Time War, like that there is in the show, certainly in New Who. Well, it has to be New Who because it's post-Time War, right? But I just think like that poetry about like the city and the sky but also just because, I mean, the face of Bo and the return of the face of Bo, and like the general themes of like community and resistance in the face of like suffering and the face of despair, which I like find really resonant, but also just like the scale of the science fiction. Like for me, I watched it when I was quite young, and Gridlock kind of showed me what science fiction could be. Because up until that point, it had been like, it's either on a spaceship or it's on a planet. And, you know, it has green aliens or it has robots. And that's kind of what science fiction is. And obviously Doctor Who had been, like, expanding my mind already. But I think for me, Gridlock was, like, the first story that was really, like, really kind of introduced me to the kind of metaphorical science fiction that you see in people like Kurt Vonnegut and Ursula K. Le Guin of, like, what if it was a planet-sized traffic jam? What does that mean? What does that stand for? What are we actually talking about? Like, what if you just take a concept and blow it up in a way that is so strange and so huge that it just completely changes the way that you think about cars and traffic jams and pollution and population control for the rest of your life? And I just remember watching it and finding it just so striking. Like, the idea of a whole world that lives inside a traffic jam, that's such a ridiculous but also such a stunning idea. Like, that's such an interesting way to, like, reinvent culture. And, like, what is the traffic jam culture? There's a traffic jam culture. Like, I love, like, I just think it's such a cool concept, and I love Martha so much. And even just, like, you know, the happy pills and stuff was, like, an interesting detail, but honestly, it's, yeah, just the concept, the Gallifrey speech, the idea that, the fact that it's hopeful, like, I love it, and it is an episode that I have rewatched many times, and will rewatch many times, and so I submit it humbly to the DVD collection.
Oh, yes, please do. I love it. It's a great pick. It's sort of in that underrated bangers territory, which I love. There's like a pocket of episodes that are like Gridlock, and for me, like The Beast Below, and episodes like that.
Yes.
That are all
God, The Beast Below.
All like in a little underrated bangers bowl. And I love it when these ones come out on the podcast, because I find it very fun when people pick episodes that I do not like, because you lot just get to watch me flounder and try and find something to say about Revenge of the Cybermen. I have nothing to say about Revenge of the Cybermen, but also we get bangers. Like the last episode that was in was Blink. Obviously Blink's going to be in at some point. It's a banger, but this is a little sweet spot, and I love these kinds of picks. Gridlock is in. Gridlock is gridlocked in the DVD collection. I'm so sorry. I hate myself. So, great pick. And I think that takes David to, like, near the top for the amount of stories in the DVD collection. So I think it's David and Tom, as it always seems to be, are neck and neck at the top, I think. Well, someone will have to tell me. Cal, who listens to the pod, will know immediately, because Cal knows the DVD collection and the Corridor of Fame better than I do. So thank you. Great pick. So, next, you know what's coming next. It's the fiery hellscape. It's the burning pit of despair. The horror zone that is bloody Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
So, bloody Twitter is... apologies if this is a bit of a jumpy episode. I apologise. We are having a copious amount of technical issues, but we are trying to push through as best as we can. Bloody Twitter is obviously a place where you lovely lot at home, can submit questions for my wonderful guests, and today is no different. First question is from Dom at Dom to Who. There's a running theme also in these questions. I am, as I briefly mentioned before, I'm in the process of creating my own Doctor Who fan audio series, and like half of the people who are involved have put messages in. I think they're looking for some guidance from a professional rather than someone who doesn't know what they're doing, which is me, as I am currently their Ella Watts. So Dom has asked, Dom is writing for my series. Hi Ella, I love Redacted. What a wonderful addition to the world of Doctor Who. I've got 2 questions for you. One, what do you think makes a good audio script? And 2, how did you survive meeting Jodie and working with her? So first one, we'll go for what do you think makes a good audio script?
Okay, so, first of all, just footnote. Josh, you are way too self-deprecating about yourself. You are a professional producer. You make a podcast. Please stop saying that you don't know what you're doing. You make a great show. I like your show.
Tonight of all nights, it really doesn't feel very professional.
Tonight of all nights, technical issues are a thing that all professional podcast producers face. That's just how you know you're a pro.
Thank you.
Second, what makes a good audio drama? Sound storytelling. That it seems obvious, but it's true. So, why is your story best told in sound? Why is it better as an audio drama than as a novel or a TV show or a comic book or a cartoon? What elements of it are distinctly sonic? And how are you using them in your storytelling? So a really famous example of this is that Lauren Shippen, who's a brilliant audio drama writer and director, when she first started out, she had no money. She'd never made an audio drama before. She had no sound design skills. She didn't have any sound designer. It was just her. And so she wrote her audio drama in a way that made sense for her environment. So the idea was that she had a therapist who, oh my goodness, thank you very much. Sorry, I just got some tea. And it's actually in my Doctor Who mug, so
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
So Lauren wrote her script to her confinements, which was she was recording in her bedroom. And so she wrote a script about a woman who was a therapist who gave therapy to people with supernatural abilities. And the idea was that the therapist was recording her own notes. So the audio doesn't sound perfect because a therapist recording her own notes wouldn't sound perfect. And the only money that Lauren spent was to buy a metronome. So it sounded like a ticking clock, like in a therapist's office. That was it. But that metronome by itself immediately puts you in the world of, oh, right, I'm in a therapist's office. I can hear a ticking clock. There's kind of the echo of being in an echoey room. Oh, yeah, okay, this makes sense. This sounds real. So it's finding ways to tell a sonic story and using the sounds that you have at your disposal to tell a good sonic story. I hope that helps.
Definitely. And question 2, how did you survive meeting Jodie and working with Jodie?
I'm not sure I did. Maybe this is all a dream. Here's the thing. The very first time that I got paid to work by the BBC was around the time that Jodie had been announced as the Doctor. And so the first time, I walked into Broadcasting House at Oxford Street, there was this huge poster of Jodie with the caption, "It's about time." And for me, as a woman into that building, it was all very, it's that movie joke where it's it's about me, it's not about you. But it was a big moment for me personally. And so then a couple of years later to, actually be working with her was so cool. And I was losing it. Juno was fangirling. I think we both cried at one point. Jodie hugged me. My soul briefly left my body before coming back into it again. I got Jodie to sign my copy of The Good Doctor. So I got Jodie and Juno to sign it, which was amazing. And Charlie Craggs videoed them signing it. So I have a video of them signing that book for me, which was just really special. And also, I wrote a bit on the series because we had so many changes. But what that did mean was that for me, as someone who, wrote Doctor Who fanfiction when I was 16 years old, I got to write for the Doctor, playing the Doctor, who I was directing as the Doctor, who I then produced as the Doctor, which was very cool for me personally. So, yeah, I lost my mind. She's amazing. She's an incredible person. She's really, really nice. She was very pregnant, and really, really fun. And I made her laugh at least once, and that was, achievement unlocked. So,
Good. That's exactly what everyone wants to hear. It's so exciting. I can't even imagine what it's like to work, like you said, write, direct, produce something for the Doctor. That is That's very, very cool. Very cool. And on a similar note, we have another great Doctor Who podcaster has messaged in, Jack, at Ann_awful_Jack, who runs a podcast, An Awful Lot of Running.
An Awful Lot of Running podcast.
Yes, it's a great pod. It's a great pod. He said, as you know from your mentions, Ella, I have adored every second of Redacted so far. Thank you for all of your work to help bring this amazing series to our ears. In this series, you got to work with the amazing Jodie Whittaker. If a sequel to Redacted ever was produced and it saw another Doctor appear, who would you like it to be and why?
I mean, there's an obvious answer to this question, considering the news we got recently. Obviously, I would want it to be Ncuti Gatwa.
Yes.
What? Excuse me?
Obviously.
Hello? All of the Doctors are amazing, obviously. Anyone to work with would be really cool. And actually, Joe Martin is another person that I think would be amazing to have on Redacted. And I think it would be a really interesting dynamic to have the fugitive Doctor dealing with Cleo, Abby, and Shauna. I don't think she would have a lot of time for them.
Definitely
and
not.
I think that would be really fun and really funny. But Ncuti Gatwa, obviously, come on, 14th Doctor, that's what I want. 14th Doctor on Redacted, that's what I want. I want the 14th Doctor talking to Cleo.
Definitely.
I want that.
100%. We've got another one. These are all linking in very nicely. On the subject of the next Doctor and the new era, Ben at Real Enthusiast, another one of my my writers. They're literally flocking in force, and I love it. Hi Ella. Redacted is superb and I've been enjoying it a ton. Congratulations and well done on all your hard work. My question is, aside from the wonderful Juno Dawson, which writers who haven't written for the show before would you love to see write for the new era? And I think he said aside from Juno Dawson because as well, after Redacted, everyone wants Juno Dawson to write for Doctor Who now on TV. How cool would that be?
Yes.
But
yes.
yeah, who else would you like to see who's never written for the show before?
Well, so I am looking at my phone because I want to make sure I get this right. But yeah. I want Nida Manzoor, who is the writer of We Are Lady Parts. I think Nida Manzoor and 14th Doctor Russell T Davies, that team would be just phenomenal. If you don't know We Are Lady Parts, it is a comedy drama about a Muslim feminist punk band. It is so good and so funny and so full of life. And even though it's not sci-fi fantasy, I think that she has such a good ability to write vivacious characters who are really charismatic and gripping in a way that I think is so true to Doctor Who as well. So for me personally, yeah, Nida Manzoor, I think.
Yeah, I am so down for that. Because Nida Manzoor's directed Doctor Who before. I'm right in saying that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just checking
I would
now.
have to check the IMDb page. But
I'm checking as we. Yep, she directed Fugitive of the Judoon and Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Yeah, get Nida Manzoor into right. Why not? I'm in. I haven't seen We Are Lady Parts yet. It's on my list, but I really, really want to watch it.
It's so good. It's incredible. And if you like Redacted, I mean, we could hope to be as good as that show, but I think we're in the same kind of broad sphere. So if you like what we're doing, you'll probably like that a lot.
Great. Love it. Absolutely love it. Next question. This is a great question from another one of my writers, Joshua Carpenter at Joshua CC252. It looks like I've literally just herded them all in a room. I haven't. They just happen to be the people who ask very good questions. Joshua has asked, which TARDIS team would make the best podcast together?
So I saw this and I got asked this recently, and I gotta say it's Bill. Like, it's Bill and 12. Can
would
you
be
imagine how
great.
much fun that podcast would be, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just Bill there talking about, like, kind of millennial gay lingo, 12 being 12, and being, like, esoteric. It would be like, I'm trying to think of, like, a good example. It feels like, I don't know, it's almost like if you put, like, Bill Nye on a podcast with, like, I mean, who's a good equivalent for Bill? But, like, you know, someone young and gay and fun. And it's just like, that would be a podcast that I would listen to.
Yeah,
So, like,
I'm
Bill
so
and 12,
down.
like, for sure.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That is a perfect answer. You can't get better than that. And another question from, who's it from? Oh my God, this genuinely looks choreographed. Not a writer for my audio series, but an actor for my audio series. Emma Rowe at erow98, who is playing the companion Violet in my audio series. Hi Ella. What do you think makes directing and audio production different to other kinds of storytelling? As an actor myself, I think it's such a creatively freeing way of telling stories. Hope you're well.
Thank you. I hope you are also well. Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously the removal of the visual element, like, that is stating the obvious, but it is a big impact. Because I think that one of the things that can happen is that whilst actors will still use, like, facial expressions and body language whilst performing, obviously the audience doesn't get any of that. So as the director, I have to make sure that any facial expressions or body language they're doing is coming through in them. And that means being much more aware of your vocal performance and thinking a lot about it, thinking about your pitch and your tone and your rhythm, your volume, obviously. And then also just kind of exercising a lot of imagination. Like, you need to, obviously, if you're doing anything like, say, for example, a movie or video game thing with, like, mocap or a green screen, you're using your imagination to figure out, like, what's going on. But in an audio, that is to the extreme. Like, sometimes you might not even have the other actors with you, and so you're imagining, like, how they're going to be doing their performance, and building a world for yourself. And I think, like, that might sometimes be a little bit difficult to get your head around, especially if you haven't done lots of audio or listened to lots of audio. But beyond that, like, the other side of that is that, in my opinion, audio drama can be a lot more freeing for actors than a lot of other mediums, because you immediately lose a lot of people's visual prejudices. Like, people think that they can hear race, class, gender, disability. You cannot. Like, we have done experiments. You can't. You have no idea who you're listening to. You only know that when they choose to tell you something about themselves. I mean, I saw someone on Twitter saying that, like, our 3 leads were white. They're not. This person made an assumption based on the voices that they heard. And so I think that, like, as an actor, what that means is that, like, you can have people, like, of any appearance, age, gender, disability, blah, 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 playing, like, any kind of character, and I think that that can be really freeing. So, for example, one of the most successful audio dramas in the world is called the Penumbra Podcast. And, like, the star is, like, a half-blind black bisexual character. But, like, none of that is to do with his character. He's actually a detective on Mars. He just happens to be all of these other things as well. And I think that can be really lovely. Like, you get a lot of, like, I think you get a lot more kind of plus size and fat romantic leads in audio drama, because you know what? People's voices are gorgeous. Also, people's bodies are gorgeous, but you don't have to deal with any of those visual prejudices. And so you immediately just get into, is this person attractive in their personality and the way they behave, in what they're doing, in their story? And you're paying attention to that rather than anything that you've got in your head about preconceptions about what a romantic lead looks like. So I think, like, as an actor, it's kind of bearing in mind that you can do anything and be anything, and that is a good thing to do. So kind of push yourself a bit and explore your limits. And You know, if someone's like, I need a space marine, and you're a 5'1" skinny white woman, be like, yeah, it could be a space marine. It's audio drama. Do whatever you want. Yeah.
Great. It's a great answer, and I love it. And like I said, there's so many people out there who are gonna benefit so much from this advice. Me and all of my writers who have, as I said, flocked to bloody Twitter, are all definitely gonna use this going forward. It genuinely will be something that helps everyone. So thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom on producing audios. We are sadly coming closer and closer to the end of the show. It's been a wonderful episode, as I said, plagued with technical issues, but fingers crossed it will hold out for us to take a little stroll down the corridor of fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing.
Sarah Jane? Do I have the right?
For some people, small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
An anniversary compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could
No more. I'm not just the kind. I'm the last of the kind.
It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
So, the Corridor of Fame, again, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically a Hall of Fame for Doctor Who. And for the first time ever, this is a very exciting moment that I get to say this. All of the Doctors are in, including Ncuti Gatwa, now in the Corridor of Fame, officially. Woo! Because every Doctor's in, they're all in. Peter Cushing's in, so Ncuti Gatwa's in. You know, they automatic on the hall of the corridor thing. They're in. Anyway, happy days. Very exciting. But that leaves many other people who aren't privileged enough or lucky enough to be the Doctor. Not all of us get to be the Doctor, which is a shame. But there's plenty of other people in the world of Doctor Who deserve a little bit of appreciation. So let's see who Ella would like to submit to the Corridor of Fame.
Okay, so I want to open up my thought process a bit on this because I agonized over this. Because on the one hand, I did want to submit either Juno or Charlie. But I have decided not to because two reasons. First of all, I'm a cocky little so-and-so, and I think that one day someone else will submit them because they're really cool and good at what they do. And I feel like they deserve better than someone who literally worked with them and therefore is deeply biased to submitting them. I think someone outside of the production should submit them because that's
Definitely
what they
they
deserve
should.
and that's what they've earned.
Yes.
So, you know, like calling out all future guests.
Yeah, please do.
No.
Please put Juno and Charlie in.
I do, yeah, but I do think they deserve to be in there. But I feel like I'm too close to production to pick them. So the person I'm going to choose instead is Gabby DeMatteis. So you might not even know who Gabby is. But she was the editorial brand manager for Doctor Who for the last couple of years. And she is responsible for The Lonely Assassins and Time Fracture and Doctor Who Redacted and The Good Doctor and a lot of the comics and novels that have been coming out over the last couple of years. And she is a massive Doctor Who fan who has worked so hard on like this brand for so long. She was a massive champion of Redacted when we were still trying to convince people that it should be made. She like really fought for us. But like she also made stuff like The Lonely Assassins and Time Fracture, which I think are also brilliant like Doctor Who supplementary materials. And I think that like with the theme of like unsung heroes, I think that she's a person who maybe no one would ever have realized like how much work she'd put in and how hard she'd fought for Doctor Who fans to have like amazing content, because she's not like a writer and she's not an actor and she's not kind of front and center on the screen. But seriously, she has like worked so hard to make so many amazing Doctor Who things with like the pure like intention of just continuing the show and also diversifying the show and making an effort to bring in people from marginalized backgrounds, bring in more women, bring in more people of color. She brought in Juno. She's the reason that we got Juno on Doctor Who at all. Like, was because Gabby DeMatteis reached out. Like, I didn't do. She was the one who asked Juno to write the first ever novel for the 13th Doctor. Yeah. Like, she has been fighting so hard in the background, and no one's seen her and no one's known what she's doing. So I've decided I'm gonna be the person who's like Gabby DeMatteis. We should celebrate her.
We should. That is a wonderful pick. As I said, it's the same. It's the same kind of thing. I love the unsung heroes going in the corridor of fame because, like you said, you know that the legends are all going to go in. You know that all of the companions are going to go in, and you know that the writers are going to go in. But it's people like this who work behind the scenes, who provide us with so much content. And even I said before that they are nailing Doctor Who on other platforms, whether it be Time Fracture or whether it be, like I said, like Doctor Who Redacted or all of these other amazing spin-off medias that we're getting at the moment on different platforms. It's so well done and it's so cohesive, and I love the fact that at the minute, like you're also seeing little things tie in together, which, as I said, you know, no spoilers for Doctor Who Redacted, but, you know, possible anyway. But I think that is a great pick. And like I said, I love it when unsung heroes get added. So Gabby DeMatteis. Did I get that right? Gabby DeMatteis?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yep.
Gabby's
that is
in.
Right. And yeah, I mean, she's part of the reason that we've got so many connections in Redacted as well. Because, like, we would be like, oh, we want to do this in an episode. And she'd be like, oh, cool, well, you should bring in the Into the Unknown blog. Or she'd be like, what about the Lonely Assassins? And, you know, I'd have things that I wanted to bring in. Juno would have her things. And then Gabby would kind of text in and be like, okay, but, like, what if we also added this thing? Or, like, what if we had a little nod here? And yeah, so if you like our Easter eggs and connections to like the wider Doctor Who universe, that is like in large part thanks to Gabby DeMatteis as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Great pick. And as I said, that now sadly brings us to the end of the show. But I do have one final question for you, Hello Watts. Before we leave, I have to ask you to, in a sentence-ish, tell me, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
It meant that I wasn't alone.
That's a really really lovely answer. And for once someone's done it in a sentence, which I love. But you've absolutely nailed that. And I think that you, again, I'm gonna hype you up, because I think that you should be really, really proud of the fact that you said that obviously Doctor Who means that people don't have to be alone, and Doctor Who Redacted is now part of that, and you have provided something that means that people won't be alone, and you've provided an amazing slice of Doctor Who, and another part of it that goes in this massive amorphous blob of Doctor Who content that people just love and enjoy, and they always will. So thank you for bringing it. And also, everyone at home, go and listen to Doctor Who Redacted. By the time this comes out, there's 5 episodes out. What are you doing? We're halfway through. Catch up, and then we can all talk about it. I definitely want to do some videos on Doctor Who Redacted when it finishes, and we'll go over the whole series because it'll be really, really exciting to do that. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Before we go, not that you need it, but please take as much time as you need, as much time as you want to plug whatever you fancy.
Thank you. Well, I mean, so outside of all of my work, I maybe do too many things. I have 2 things that I want to plug. One of them is I'm a game designer for like role-playing games, so like Dungeons and Dragons, if you're not familiar, tabletop role-playing game type things. So I made a game about being queer and rebuilding peace in the ruins of war and sailing a ship on a magical river called Upriver Downriver. So if you want to check that out, then you can do that. It's a book, we crowdfunded it, but you can like pre-order it or buy it when it's out. And then the other thing that I'm going to plug is that I, again, kind of an RPG thing, is that I GM'd a sci-fi role-playing game called Nibiru, which is set on a planet-sized space station. And it's all about amnesiacs who are trying to figure out who they are and how they fit into a massive, terrifying, beautiful science fiction world. And so I ran a game of that on a podcast called Realms of Peril and Glory. So if you want to hear me storytelling, then you can do that now in their like 2-shot thing called Nibiru Erebus, which the first episode came out today when we're recording, and the second episode comes out on Monday, 16th of May. So by the 16th of May, both of them will be out. Maybe give them a listen, please.
Yes, please do.
Those are my plugs.
Please do. Thank you. And to do my usual spiel, you've been listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and share and subscribe and rate and whatever you can. Comment as well, just anything. Because, as I said, engagement helps. It means that more people listen and I can do more cool stuff. And also check out the new series, the Speakeasy. It's a chilled, laid back, just me chatting to a camera and discussing a random topic that can be chosen by you. Tweet me at whoknewdwpod on Twitter, or you can tweet me directly at Josh Ryan Carr. You can email us at whoknewdwpod@gmail.com. And as well, if you want to support the podcast, we've got a Patreon. I'm going to revamp the tiers so that you can get more good stuff for a little bit less money. And you can also support the podcast at the same time, which hopefully is nice. And you can even get discounts off merch, because we've got merch. You can buy a T-shirt, you can buy whatever. Thank you, Ella, once again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to have you on, and it's been great fun.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to everybody at home, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you all soon. Massive thank you to all of our patrons, and especially Cal King. If you want to become a patron, you can join for as low as £1 a month and get loads of benefits and support the pod. Check out the link in the description. Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can check us out wherever you get your podcasts and now on YouTube. Please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you can, as it really helps us out. And a massive thanks to the Sononauts for lending their cover of the Doctor Who theme to be the theme for the podcast.